Hey, welcome back to the channel. Eric here, and we're back with another repair video today. This time around we have the Game of Thrones Daenerys by Prime 1 in collaboration with Blitzway. This was a quarter scale statue. It features Daenerys sitting on her chair surrounded by her 3 dragons. So now we have a few things to repair. One of them is obviously going to be the dragon's leg. This comes down to Prime 1's engineering on the way they made the dragon fit into the chair. It was just a really poor design, and I spoke to a well-known retailer who had told me that this particular statue and this particular dragon had a lot of issues with breaks in the leg. So now there are metal rods running through both legs, but the legs are so skinny and weak, it's not enough to hold up the weight of the dragon. So I'm going to do my best to resculpt the missing parts on the legs and try to strengthen them up as much as I can so they have more support and they hold on better and don't have to worry about any issues with this breaking again in the future. Also, there was a slight little chip on the back of the chair just from the dragon's foot. Must have chipped it. And then also we have the dragon's wing is missing a little piece of the tip. So I'll be going in there and resculpting that back into place as well. Once we get the sculpt back to where it's looking like factory standards, I'll go in, I'll prime the areas and color match the paint and just make it look like nothing had broken in the first place, which is always my goal when fixing statues. I want to make it look as best as possible to the point where you can't even tell it broke in the first place. So the first thing up that we're going to do is resculpt the leg, resculpt that little tip on the dragon's wing, and patch up the back of the chair with some Epoxy Sculpt. Okay, so it's the next day. I let the Epoxy Sculpt have some time to dry. I usually recommend to let it cure for a day or so. I tried to match up the textures as best as possible. It's a little tricky with the dragon scales. This isn't the final look right now. This is just a start to get me going in the right direction. I'll probably go back in and work it a little bit more, do a little bit more better blends with the texture, and just to bring the leg back to the way it was supposed to look in the first place. It's probably hard to pick up on camera, but the right leg was also cracked. It wasn't to the point like the left leg was where it was almost hanging off, but there was a crack going throughout the right leg that I also went in and fixed up and glued back together with some epoxy glue, and I also went in with some Epoxy Sculpt just to blend it all in together. So here's how those 2 legs are looking at this point after the Epoxy Sculpt. And also, here's a look at the dragon's wing, the tip that broke off. I went back in and I resculpted it, tried to match up the texture. Again, this is just early stages. Once I get the primer down and I could see how things are blending and looking together, I might go back in and rework it a little bit. So the next step is going to be to go in and prime those areas and get it ready for paint. So we need to mask off the rest of the dragon so it doesn't get any overspray or paint in areas where we don't want it. So the dragon was masked off with some plastic as well as some painter's tape. Since the dragon is protected, now we can go in with the primer and get everything primed. Okay, so I gave the primer a few hours to dry. This particular primer that I use that sprays through the airbrush dries pretty quickly, but I always like to wait a few hours just to let it fully cure. At this point, I'm going to be going in with the green from the dragon, color matching that green paint, and we're going to be going in and doing all the shadows and highlights. And here's the final result. This is right before clear coat, but basically this is the final look. We have the dragon's leg sculpted back into place. The paint matched up perfectly. I got the wingtip painted. Everything's looking good on that as well. Also, as well as the back of the chair, I patched up the little chip that was there and blended the paint back in. You can't even know anything was even broken to begin with. So at this point, I'll be going in with the clear coat and just protecting the paint and just tying it all in together. So before I get to the final look of the dragon back on the chair, I did some test fitting and I noticed the dragon's legs still didn't feel sturdy enough. I wasn't too comfortable sending this back to my client and worrying about this breaking again in the future. There was just way too much flex and give to the legs. Like I said, there's a metal rod running through those legs, but it still has a little bit of give to it, to where I was worried about it might break again. So what I had done is I went back in and I sculpted in a little bit more muscle tones into the legs just to thicken them up a little bit more. And once I put that dragon back on the chair, after that point, it felt a lot more sturdier, and I was a lot more happy and confident shipping this back and knowing that it's not going to break again in the future. With that said, these dragon legs are extremely fragile. Like I said, it was very poor engineering. I mean, it was smart to put the metal rods throughout the leg, and that's great that Prime 1 did that, but it's not enough to hold up the weight of the dragon. And as you can see, what happened, it just causes a lot of breaks in the legs, and basically just shatters that polystone down to the metal rod. So yeah, I don't know if they could have done anything different, but yeah, the way it is, I felt it wasn't acceptable. So I went back in, as mentioned, and just added a little bit more thickness to those legs just to make them a little bit more sturdier. I actually think it looks a lot cooler with all the extra little muscle definitions in the legs. So really happy with the way it turned out. So yeah, another successful repair. I showed my client pictures. They were super happy with the way it turned out. So I'll be shipping this back off to them and on to the next repair. I have a ton of repair videos coming up. Constantly have people sending me items in to be repaired. So if you're watching this video and you need a statue repair, feel free to reach out to me. My info is down below in the description box. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next project.